Somewhere in a field in Canada sits a machine the size of a small house. 8 wheels, 600 horsepower, 30 tons of steel. There is only one of them on Earth. And for years, people drove past it, convinced it was left there to rot. They were wrong about almost everything. Stay with me, because this story has everything. A 6'4" cowboy with a Stetson hat who ordered engineers to build the impossible. A secret arms race between 3 companies, each one trying to build the biggest tractor the world had ever seen. A piece of technology hidden inside this beast in 1977 that your car probably still doesn't have today. And one fatal flaw, one single design mistake that doomed this giant before it ever had a chance. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what Big Roy was, why only one was ever built, and what really became of it. Spoiler, the ending is not what you think. Let's get into it. To understand the machine, you have to understand the man. His name was Roy Robinson. And Roy was not a small guy. We're talking 6'4", cowboy boots, a Stetson hat he wore like it was part of his skull. The kind of man who walks into a room and the room adjusts. Roy ran a company called Versatile out of Winnipeg, Manitoba, a Canadian company that built farm tractors. Good ones, reliable ones. But good and reliable wasn't enough for Roy, because in 1977, something was happening in the tractor world that most people have completely forgotten about. There was a war, a quiet, brutal, ego-fueled war. And it was about to produce one of the strangest machines ever built. A tractor war? Yeah, I'll explain in a second. But first you need to see what these companies were actually trying to do. Because once you understand that, Big Roy stops looking ridiculous and starts looking like genius. Roy looked at his competitors. He looked at his factory. And he gave his engineers an order that would change everything. He said, basically, build me the biggest tractor anyone has ever seen. No committee, no years of market research, just one larger-than-life man pointing at the horizon and saying, make it bigger. So they did, and what they built, they named after him. Big Roy. Okay, the war. This is where it gets good. Back in the 1970s, a handful of companies became obsessed with one question. Who could build the most powerful tractor on the planet? This wasn't about farming anymore. This was about bragging rights. Pure, raw, mine's bigger than yours, engineering ego. In one corner, Steiger, working on a monster called the Panther, powered to roughly 650 horsepower. In another corner, down in the United States, the legendary Big Bud 747. A tractor so absurd it pushed past 760 horsepower and weighed as much as a loaded semi-truck. These things were giants, and Roy Robinson was not about to sit in Winnipeg and watch the Americans take the crown. But here's the twist, and this is the part that makes Big Roy special. Roy didn't just try to copy them, he told his engineers to throw out the rule book. Every big tractor at the time was basically built the same way. Engine in front, 4 giant wheels, done. Roy's team looked at that and said, what if we did almost all of it backwards? And I mean that literally. They flipped the entire design. What rolled off that drafting table in Winnipeg wasn't a tractor. It was something the world had genuinely never seen before. 8 wheels, 4 axles, the engine mounted in the back. And the moment it rolled out of that factory, people couldn't believe it was real. But to understand why it looked so insane, we need to talk about the numbers. And the numbers are absolutely ridiculous. Let me hit you with these one at a time, because each one is more insane than the last. Length. Big Roy was over 30 feet long. That's longer than a school bus. A tractor longer than a school bus. Height. 11 feet tall. You would need a ladder just to look the driver in the eye. Weight. When this thing was fully loaded for the field, over 30 tons. Some sources put it at around 52,000 pounds. Let that sink in. 30 tons rolling across a farm field under the control of one person sitting in a cab. The engine? A 19-liter Cummins diesel pumping out roughly 600 horsepower, mounted, like I said, at the back of the machine. And here's where it gets clever, because putting the engine in the back created an obvious, terrifying problem. If the engine is behind you, and it's the size of a shipping container, how do you see what's behind the tractor? You can't. The view to the rear was almost completely blocked. For a 30-foot machine dragging massive equipment behind it, that's not an inconvenience. That's a disaster waiting to happen. So the engineers needed a solution, In 1977, with 1977 technology and what they came up with, honestly might be the most impressive thing in this entire story. We'll get to it in a moment, and I promise you'll do a double take, but first, picture climbing into this thing. The cab had sliding doors on both sides, air conditioning. And here's a detail people always miss. It had seating for 3 full-grown adults. 3 in a tractor. In front of the cab sat a fuel tank that held 550 gallons of diesel. That's not a fuel tank, that's a swimming pool. 12 60-watt lights so it could work through the night. A 6-speed manual transmission. Yeah, you had to shift gears in this beast, topping out at a blistering 13 miles per hour. And the whole machine bent in the middle, articulating between the second and third axle to turn. It was, by every measure, a marvel. But none of that is the part that'll surprise you most. Because hidden in that dashboard was a piece of tech that was so far ahead of its time, it's almost unbelievable. Remember the problem? You can't see behind the tractor. So Versatile's engineers installed something that in 1977 sounded like science fiction. A camera, a dust-proof, closed-circuit television camera, mounted on the back, pointed straight down at the drawbar with a wide 120-degree view. And inside the cab, sitting right in the dashboard, was a 9-inch TV monitor showing the driver exactly what was happening behind the machine. A backup camera. In 1977, stop and think about that. The backup camera in your car, the one that felt futuristic when it showed up in vehicles decades later, this tractor had one. In 1977, before most people had even heard of a personal computer, before the internet, before VHS tapes were in every home, a farm tractor, built in Winnipeg, had a working video monitoring system in the cab. And that's the moment you realize Big Roy wasn't a joke. It wasn't some clumsy, oversized toy. It was a genuine glimpse of the future, decades early. So here's the question that should be bothering you right now. If this thing was that advanced, that powerful, that ahead of its time, why does only one exist? Why didn't Versatile build 1,000 of them? Why isn't every massive farm in the world running a fleet of Big Roys today? Because there was a flaw. A single, fatal flaw. Hiding in plain sight, right underneath all 8 of those enormous wheels. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Here's the thing about those 8 wheels. On paper, brilliant. 8 massive tires meant more rubber touching the ground, more grip, more of that 600 horsepower actually pulling instead of just spinning in the dirt, and it kept the tractor narrow enough to be useful. So what's the problem? Look closely. All 4 tires on the left side ran in the exact same line, and all 4 on the right side ran in their own single line. So instead of spreading the weight, those tires hammered the same 2 strips of earth over and over and over. And that did something farmers absolutely cannot allow. It crushed the soil severely. We call it soil compaction. When the ground gets packed so hard and so deep that water can't drain, roots can't grow, and crops struggle to survive. Think about the irony. You build a tractor to farm more land, more efficiently, more powerfully than ever before, and the very design that made it powerful was quietly damaging the field it was driving across. The 8-wheel layout, the thing that made Big Roy look so jaw-droppingly cool, was the thing that doomed it. And it gets worse. If you ever got the chance to crawl underneath Big Roy and look at its frame, you'd see something telling: weld marks. Everywhere. Cuts where pieces were sliced out, then welded back in. That's not a finished product. That's a machine that was still being figured out. A constant work in progress. A prototype fighting its own design every single day it operated. The engineers tried. They really did. But the math didn't lie. And here's the quiet, almost sad ending to the arms race. Versatile's next big tractor, the one that came after Big Roy, made a humbling decision. It went back to the normal 4-wheel design, 2 axles, the way everyone else did it. Big Roy's wild 8-wheel dream was over before it ever really began. One built, never mass-produced, a 600 horsepower experiment that the world decided it didn't need. But that's not the end of the story. Because what happened to Big Roy next, after the dream died, after Versatile moved on, is the part almost nobody knows. And it's the reason people thought it was rotting away in a field. Fast forward to the mid-1980s, Versatile, the company that built Big Roy, gets sold, bought out by Ford, and when a company changes hands, things get cleaned out. The back lot, the old experiments, the prototypes that never went anywhere. So picture it, you've got this 30-ton legend, a one-of-a-kind machine, a tractor that was supposed to conquer the world and didn't. What do you even do with it? You can't sell it, there's only one, and it never went into production. You can't really use it. The design problems never got solved. So Big Roy and another prototype got donated, sent away, handed off to a place called the Manitoba Agricultural Museum out in a small Canadian town. And here's where the legend was born. People would come, people would go, and over the years the story spread, the way stories do. Did you hear about that giant failed tractor? The one rotting away in a field somewhere in Manitoba? The biggest tractor Canada ever built, reduced to a rumor, a curiosity, a what could have been slowly weathering under open sky. And honestly, for a while, that's how it looked. Paint fading. A machine that once represented the future. Sitting still, going nowhere, gathering dust and whispers. If the story ended there, it'd be a tragedy. A brilliant idea, a fatal flaw, a slow fade into nothing. But it doesn't end there, because in 2015, something happened that no one saw coming. Something that flips this entire story on its head. And it starts with a single, completely random encounter. Here's the part that gives me chills. A chance encounter. The person the museum trusted to operate Big Roy happened to cross paths with people from Versatile, the very company that built it decades earlier. And Versatile had a milestone coming up, their 50th anniversary in 2016. So someone had an idea. What if, instead of letting this legend keep fading, Versatile restored it, brought it back to the exact factory in Winnipeg where it was born, tore it down, fixed it, made it shine again, and used it to celebrate 50 years of the company? The museum said yes. And in the late fall of 2015, Big Roy left the museum grounds and went home, back to Winnipeg, back to the same plant where almost 40 years earlier, Roy Robinson had pointed at the horizon and said, "Make it bigger." And then those engineers did something beautiful. They stripped it down, almost to the bare frame. They repaired the mechanics, new components, a brand new cab interior, fresh decals, and then a fresh coat of paint in the exact original factory colors it wore the day it was first built. The machine everyone thought was rotting in a field. The failure, the rumor, the what could have been was being reborn by the very people who made it, in the very place it came from. Piece by piece, they put the giant back together, and when they were finished, Big Roy didn't look like a ghost anymore. It looked like a king. So let's clear it up, once and for all. Big Roy is not rotting in a field. Today, it stands fully restored, back at the Manitoba Agricultural Museum, in pristine, factory-fresh condition. And it's not forgotten, far from it. It's one of the museum's biggest attractions. People travel from all over the world just to stand next to it, to look up at those 8 enormous wheels, to see the backup camera that shouldn't exist, to feel just how massive 30 tons of Canadian engineering really is up close. The tractor that failed, the one that never went into production, the one a design mistake doomed, turned out to be one of the most beloved, most photographed, most legendary machines its country ever produced. And that's the question I want to leave you with. Was Big Roy a failure? By the numbers, sure. One built, never mass-produced. A design that compacted the soil it was meant to farm. But look closer, it had a video monitoring system decades before your car did. It dared to flip the entire layout of what a tractor could be. It was born from one man's refusal to play it safe. And almost 50 years later, people are still talking about it, still driving across a country to see it, still making videos about it, like this one. Some machines succeed by selling 1 million units. Big Roy succeeded by becoming unforgettable. Only one was ever built. And honestly, one was all it ever needed to be. So the next time someone tells you about the giant Canadian tractor rotting away in a field, now you know the truth. It was an arms race. It was a 6'4" cowboy with a wild idea. It was genius and failure wrapped into 30 tons of steel. And it was saved by the very people who built it. If this story pulled you in, there are 100 more machines just like it. Forgotten giants, impossible experiments, legends most people never hear about. Stick around and I'll show you the next one. Because trust me, Big Roy is just the beginning.